This channel is for educational purposes only. Make sure you do your own due diligence before making any investments. And there is inherent risk in trading, so it's speculative. Just make sure you keep that in mind. Hi, this is Joe. We're going to talk about the ADX indicator without having the ADX indicator line up there. As you know, if you've watched any of my videos, I go into depth on the ADX indicator and also look at the DI lines, the directional indexes, that really create the ADX line. So I wanted to do this differently this week because I wanted to get in-depth analysis and show you how you can improve your timing by understanding this really important indicator, and especially what the relationship between the DI lines and what they're doing and how that can help you understand where you are in the cycle of a stock. Take a listen. I think you'll find this to be very useful. And let's go ahead and get into the examples. So let's get started with the first example here, which is Morgan Stanley MS. I've already outlined the price action that I'm looking at. So through this period, I had a horizontal line drawn dating back from June all the way through November, where we just went sideways. And if you notice, so one of the things I wanted to make sure I did on this video was I took the ADX line off. So we only have a DI lines on here right now. And I wanted to do that because I wanted to make it clear what is actually taking place and what's causing the ADX line to do what it's doing. So again, just to review, the green line represents the strength of the buyers. It's a 13 MA moving average of the strength of each up move. And the red line is the strength of the sellers. And that represents a 13 MA on the strength of the decline. So every time we make a lower low, we will look at the difference between each low and add that over a 13 period moving average to figure out the negative DI. And then the same thing for the positive side. So if you notice where the DI lines come together and in this area right here, I don't have to have the ADX line up. I can tell you that that's a low ADX condition, because when these lines are moving apart, and it doesn't matter whether green is on top or red is on top, but if they're moving apart, if red is moving up and green is moving down, or the opposite where green is moving up and red is moving down and they're separating, that is where you're going to start to see that ADX line actually rising. So I know through this period here, I have low ADX, and we've got this sideways pattern. And then when we see the breakout pattern, we're looking for confirmation in green DI. We want to see it take out the prior peak of red, and we want to see it above 25. This was clearly above the 25 line on this breakout, and then it got through the prior red peak. And then we made a higher pivot low above 25 to confirm this little higher low that was taking place after the breakout. So then we go through what I would consider to be an expansion phase. And this is the main point I wanted to discuss here, is the move from here to here. And then you can see it on the downside as well. That's an expansion phase. And then where the DI lines are coming together, like from there to there, and from here to here, where red comes to there, that's a contraction phase. So we have a period of expansion and then a period of contraction. And I think you need to be on the lookout for this. You need to know where you are in the stock's cycle, because what we're trying to find is a period of contraction and then starting to expand. You want to get in for these periods where you're just starting to expand. You don't want to get in after a long expansion period to the downside, to the upside, right? I mean, that would be late. And then we go through another contraction phase here. And I think if you're looking at the market this way, you're going to find that you're going to get a lot better at your entry periods, knowing what is actually taking place, that we've just gone through a contraction phase and now we're starting to expand. If you can do this and you start to look at things this way, your timing is going to improve dramatically. Your understanding of how a stock is reacting and moving down is going to improve dramatically. And your timing is going to definitely improve because you're going to stop getting long after expansion phases. You're going to start getting long after contractions. That's what we're looking for. We want to get in after a contraction. This gives you that. And I'm going to clear the board here because what I want you to start thinking about is the green line. As long as that's staying on top, you're in a positive trend. Again, I can tell you this is a low ADX period, and then as this starts to expand, the ADX line is crossing above 25. And because the green line held 25 here, I can pretty much bet that the ADX line held 25. And then during this period, it probably slipped down a little bit under 25, but then started to emerge again. So, and if you notice what's taken place recently now, red is actually taking over. Red came up. It didn't cross over green, but then it held the 25 line and went to a new high. So right now, through this period, we're going through a little bit more of a more important correction phase because red has clearly held the 25 line on a pullback. And so when we have that, then we know that we're probably going to get like an opposing trend trigger to develop where the 18 will cross down below the 40 here, and we get a little bit more of a complex corrective wave. So I just think if you can think in these terms, expansion, right? Contraction, think that way. I think it'll be very, very useful information, especially following a low ADX period. You're going to know you're going to want to buy pullbacks, and pullbacks are in the contraction phase. Let's take a look at MU. I've got the same setup in place here. I've got price. I've got the DI lines. Now, the difference here, we didn't have any kind of a real low ADX period because if you notice, it was either green or red above 25. We never had a period where both lines were below. It's just a very volatile sideways move. But you can see in price, we eventually broke out above the sideways line, and green confirmed by making a higher high. So this is different. It's not actually taking out the red peak, but it's taking out a prior green peak to confirm the price action. We always confirm price. Price is telling us that something is taking place, and then we go down to the indicator to confirm. And it's the reason why I've actually created this zigzag on top, because I want you to make sure you understand, like each one of these little dips in the DI line, it only counts if you have an equal a dip in the price, meaning we need a little swing top and a swing bottom to take place in the price action before we start looking at the DI lines for a pivot. So price creates the pivots, and then we confirm those pivots with the DI lines. Make sure you ask any questions on this if you need a little confirmation or if it doesn't make sense. And also, while I'm at it, please hit the like button. I appreciate that. If this is the type of material you find helpful, please do that for me. So again, we go through another period here where we make a move to the upside, and that's an expansion phase. So the DI lines are moving away from each other through this period. That's the peak in the ADX, where green is as high as it is versus the red. The difference between the two is as big as it got. And then we go through a contraction phase where the DI line, actually the DI lines come together. And then if you notice here, green doesn't cross back below 25. So that means the ADX is still pretty strong. And then we get a higher, we make a higher low and a higher high, and that kind of confirms that we're up, at least for a little bit anyway. And I would consider this to be the expansion phase, and it's a lot easier to see on the red DI that made a lower low here. So that's the distance. The farthest distance between these two lines was right here for this phase, and then we go through a contraction phase. And then if you notice, now we've gotten a little sloppy. Both lines are below. This ADX line is, I can guarantee you, is starting to drop down. It might even be already below 25, and now we're getting into kind of a low ADX condition. And if you notice what price is doing, there's no trend now. It's sideways. The moving averages have kind of rolled over. 18 is about to cross down below the 40, and we've got this sideways action. So we always want to start with the price action and then confirm with the DI lines. And the DI lines are going to help you understand what the ADX line is doing. So get used to looking at expansion and contraction, expansion, contraction. I think if you do that, you're going to go a long way to understanding the ADX indicator. So again, hit that like button for me, and we'll see you next time.